Good morning, Cabin Fever.
Yeah!
How are we doing? All right, my name is David, and I am a grateful recovering addict. I do want to start off by saying that I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. My clean date is August 16th, 2013. I do want to send out a lot of gratitude to my Atlanta friends who came up here with me on this treacherous journey to this little convention that I absolutely love, and they were definitely troopers. So I do want to, and Kyle for driving the whole way. So, all right, guys. And I also want to thank my higher power. That is very important to me. I would not be here if it wasn't for a higher power working in my life. Working behind the scenes in my life and working unseen in my life. I would definitely not be able to stand up here in front of you all today. So the ties that bind was the topic that I was given, right? And as soon as I found out what that topic was, I kind of did some research and I was like looking through, some literature, and I thought I had what I wanted to talk about. And one of my friends, he's one of those people that just kind of like need to tell you things even though you already know it, right? And he was like, this isn't a topic about S&M, right? And I'm like, of course. And then I actually had to get into the NA literature and find out what it was that I needed to talk about. So that's mostly true. So when I was told about ties that bind, the first thing that popped into my head was the readings that we hear every meeting on the traditions, right? As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that would tear us apart, all will be well. And I thought that was pretty interesting because I'm doing the back to basics version of the steps this time, and working traditions along with the steps. And one of the things that I find interesting about that back to basics version is that at the end of the traditions, it always asks, in all of these other areas, how can we practice these principles, right? And that's really important because we have to practice these principles in all of our affairs in order to be a well-rounded, recovering addict, right? It's walking into the rooms and just practicing the principles within that hour of a meeting isn't going to keep you clean, isn't going to keep me clean. And I have to learn how to take what I hear and what I learn in the steps and in these meetings and take it out with me. And then I found this Living Clean book, and there's an entire chapter called The Ties That Bind. And so I'm going to kind of talk about I'm going to read a little part that kind of stuck out to me, because it talks about connection to ourselves, connection to our higher power, connection to others, and connection to the world around us. And so I found a couple of pieces in here that really stuck out to me, and I'm going to kind of talk about. So the first one is connection to ourselves, right? To be able to be the person I am for the people around me, I have to do the work for myself, right? And so I thought that was kind of, again, one of those interesting pieces that they put that first. And I like how they laid this out too, because in step 5, we admit it to ourselves, to our higher power, and to another human being, in that order, right? And so we have to work on ourselves first, we have to have a connection with our higher power, and then we can go and take that outward. So the connection to ourselves, it says, there may be different ways we describe ourselves, and the ones that seem most important can change depending on where we are in our lives. Identity is a confusing word. It indicates the things that make us different from each other and the things that make us exactly the same. And that idea of identity, right? I come into the rooms and I say, my name is David, right? That's identifying myself, and that I'm an addict. And that identifies me as one of you. And I find that to be pretty interesting. We talk about the anonymity of the program and being all on the same page, and that is super important. But the thing that I absolutely love about the program is that we are all different, right? We all come from different walks of life, different economic statuses, different political ideals, different, gender identities, sexual identities, all of these things, right? Different drugs we used gives us all different experiences, but we can walk into a room together with one purpose, right? Carry that message to the addict who still suffers. And for that person who comes into that room, that newcomer that comes into that room, to see all of these different people sitting in a room, nodding to these stories, laughing at each other when we say stuff that kind of hits home, a little too close to home. And for me, that's super important, right? Like, we are all different. And that's what makes this program beautiful. But we can all put that aside the moment we walk into the room. The minute a struggling addict is out there and we need to do a 12-step call, how you think is no importance to me. You're coming with me and we're going to go help this guy, right? Or this girl. And I think that's super important because I was one of those people that when I got out of prison and I was released to my parents' address in rural Missouri, I'm like, nobody's going to understand my story. Right? I'm not going to be able to hear my story in the people that I meet there. I future trip all the time. Like, I was like, nobody's going to understand me because I come from a different background, right? Like, I'm a gay man. I'm like, who's going to be, like, I just automatically assumed nobody would understand me, right? And I had this terminal uniqueness, right? We talk about that terminal uniqueness. You know, and I identified, and I already set myself apart from everybody else before I even stepped into the room. And boy, was I wrong. You know, because as soon as I started saying stuff about it, like, people would come up to me, like, they identified with the feelings, right? And that's where we find that similarity, right? Like, everybody's story is going to be different, and that's great. Your story is your story, and I want to hear it. Because I want to identify with you. I want to hear what you went through so that I can sit there and say, I know exactly what you're talking about. I may not know the exact things that you're talking about or have been through those exact things, but I was there emotionally. I was there spiritually. I was there mentally. And that's where we find our similarities with each other. It also says we are as different as our stories, but our literature reminds us that addiction makes us all one of a kind. So I learned how to accept myself through my step work, and just to be me, right? I still walk in and I talk about the stories that I've been through, and it's not even about making sure that everybody understands my story, but I also want to be that person. I talk about things in my stories where things that happen to me, the traumas that happen to me, and sometimes that can be a little tough to hear, but I want that person in the back of the room who's not sure that this is where they want to be to sit there and say, wow, that person can go through that, stand up in front of a group of people and tell them what he's been through and still be clean and stay clean, right? So maybe there's hope. That I can reach that person to say, you know what, when you get to the point where you're comfortable enough, you can talk about stuff, right? Because it is your story, and somebody else needs to hear that. I tell that to my sponsees all the time. I'm like, your story is something that needs to be heard eventually, when you're comfortable enough to tell it. And you're going to find that people identify with it, even if you don't think so. So after we find this connection with ourselves, we're told to find a connection with a higher power, right? Like, the first step is admitting that I'm the addict and that I'm the problem, right? That my life is unmanageable and that my addiction has caused all these problems. And then the second and third step, we go into developing this idea of a higher power. And so there's a section in the Living Clean. It says, action is not always visible. Sometimes in order for us to move forward, we must stand very still. Meditation can be hard because it can be so uncomfortable to be quiet with ourselves, to simply stand in the moment and be present. But this is where we ask for help, listen for answers, look ourselves in the eye and see who we are, where we are, and how we are. And meditation has been really important to me too, right? My mind always goes a mile a minute, and it's going in 14 different directions, and I can see, and it's so unsettling sometimes because I can see things from all these different angles, right? And it makes me not do anything. I'm like, but if I go this way, then it's going to go this way, and and all of this happens within a split second, and I'm just like, I'm just not going to do anything. Something will happen to me, then I can react, right? But I find meditation very important. Every morning I wake up, and the first thing I do is I grab my vape, and I go, because I'm an addict, and I go outside. I don't even take my phone with me, right? I leave my phone on the charger, and I go outside, and where I live, there's like this kind of busy street because it's right going onto the highway, and so I can hear all these cars going by in the morning, right? And I'm just like, it's like white noise to me, right? And I go out there and I just vape and I stare towards the sunrise, and I just say, thank you, right? That's simple. Thank you. I don't even know who I'm talking to, but I just say, you know what I mean? I'm grateful that I wake up in a bed today that I actually recognize. That I actually get to wake up today. Because there was a lot of times in my life in active addiction where I almost made it my goal to not wake up, right? I wanted to just have it be over for so long. And I'm grateful that I actually get to wake up today. That I get to do things today, right, Kat? I get to do things. I don't have to. Nobody's making me. But I get to, right? I get this chance at this new way of life, and I thank my higher power for it, right? Because when I got arrested, like I was getting like in it, right? Like I was in the business of dope, right? And it was just getting heavier and heavier, and I'm like, I don't know how to get out of this, right? The feds came along. And gave me a reason to get out of it, right? And I can sit there and say that, oh, it's because I was doing the wrong. No, I think my higher power was like, I'm going to do for you what you obviously cannot do for yourself, and this is going to be a life lesson that is going to be with you for a while, right? And that my arrest is my clean date, right, or the day after my arrest, because I was high when I got arrested, but I didn't use in prison. I had the opportunity to, but I chose not to, because I look eventually after I cried, because I was like, oh my God, my life is over. I eventually realized, like, maybe this is my opportunity to try something different, right? Because I was so ready to be done with it long before I actually got arrested. And my higher power still shows up today, right? Just at the beginning of the year, my cat, my baby, this boy has been with me through everything, and he had a bladder blockage, and could not, he was I came home from a trip, and he was not moving, barely walking, just looking at me like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, I don't either. And so I took him to an emergency vet, and they told me it was going to be, $1,200. And I was like, I don't have that. And so I reached out to my network, right? And I was like, they want $1,200 and I don't have it. I'm just like, they're like, don't worry about it. Give me their number. I'm going to put my credit card on there. And so one of my friends paid for the emergency vet. So then I took the cat to the hospital, because the emergency vet is only open at night, and they close during the day. So I had to take him to the hospital, and they were like, he's still getting blocked, and it's really problematic, and there's really nothing else we can do, other than this surgery. Now the hospital stay was $4,500, and then they wanted another $3,000 for the surgery, and I was just like, I don't have it, and I've already asked all these other people to help me, and I just can't ask for more now. So I went into that hospital on January 3rd, and I was like, I'm ready. I cried all day, because I was like, I'm going to have to put my cat down. And I'm just like, this is the worst thing in the world. I felt like such a failure. And I go in there, and they're like, well, there's this other option. And I'm like, what is it? and they're like, well, you can sign him over to us, right? Just give him up to us. We will find a cat rescue place to take them. They do this sort of thing all the time. They like take these strays or whatever, or drop-offs, and they fix them up, and then they put them up for adoption. And I'm like, yes, do that, please. As long as he gets to live, right? Like, I just want him to live, and it may not be with me, but at least he'll be able to live. And so I did. I signed him over, and I walked away, and I was just like, I knew I did the right thing, right? I knew I did what was best for him. Because if I went off of my will during that whole time, I would have like kept him until he just like keeled over, right? Like I would have just, or put him to death, right? Put him to sleep. And I surrendered completely, right? We talk about that, right? We surrender completely to this program, and the blessings will follow. I got a call the next day from the hospital, the cat hospital, and they said, we found a rescue place. Just wanted to give you an update. We found a rescue place. They're going to take your cat. And I said, good. And I was about ready to hang up the phone. And they're like, we told them your story, and the cat rescue place has agreed to give him back to you. So, for me, I was like, are you serious? Like, I just 2 days ago, I'm like, or like just yesterday, I'm like ready to put my cat down, and then I gave him up, right? I surrendered completely, and my higher power answered, right? That is how this program works, right? It may not seem like that's the right thing to do, or that there's going to be blessings behind it, but I have to surrender today. I have to. I have to surrender completely. I can't surrender this, but not this, or, pick and choose what I want to surrender. Like, I have to surrender completely today. And that's how that development with my higher power gets stronger. So, after that, the book talks about connection with the world around us, right? And the part that kind of stuck out to me says, some of us stay entirely within the sphere of recovery. All of our friends are in recovery. The whole world is tied up with the fellowship, not because we're afraid to venture out, but because we derive so much satisfaction from the rich interactions we have in NA. And that proves true for me. That's why it stuck out to me, because all of my friends are in recovery. I work in recovery. Like, I go to NA meetings. Everybody I know, most of my phone has the NA in front of it. And that's important to me, right? Because the connections that I have with everybody in the rooms is what keeps me clean today. I don't hang out with people from work, outside of work, and that's just how I run my program. The last thing that the book talks about is connection to others. And it says, practicing compassion helps us to stop comparing ourselves to others. We start seeing the deep connections and similarities between us. Our traditions teach us that we are all equal. This does not mean we are the same, but differences are striking and sometimes very entertaining. Yes. And I absolutely love that last line, because I find so much joy in the people around me. I find so much happiness with my connections with people, and that is just the beauty of this program. That no matter what, we can walk in here with whatever kind of day we have, and the people around us are going to be there for us. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, David. So I would like to introduce our next speaker, Marky.
Good morning, Cabin Fever. I'm so honored that I was asked to come and speak here. I'm a little nervous. I've never been to this convention before. Right. I've often shared many places, but this is my first time being here, and I'm just honored. Thanks to the committee for inviting me and my dear friend Brenda, who I met in 2016 in Dallas, Texas. We kept in touch. And that's part of ties that binds me together to the program. The program offers many gifts, and for me, being able to travel with Narcotics Anonymous from place to place, I get so much gratitude and joy. Because prior to coming to Narcotics Anonymous, I was stuck in a box from like a 2-block radius. So I'm real grateful to be here, grateful to be in recovery. My clean date is 9/12/12. And I'm from Racine, Wisconsin. We drove 8 hours to get here. So the program says we travel far and wide for our recovery, and I'm honored to be able to do that. So I'm just gonna come straight out the living clean journey continues, and just make it kind of real personal. For me, I'm just gonna take a moment so I can try to, get calm, so I won't talk as fast, because typically I like to rush. I don't like to, but I haven't, I just talk fast when I'm up here just to kind of get it over with, and I'll miss some points that I want to get to. So let's just take a deep breath. Thank you. So God, that come in and share his will for me and not Marky's will. Okay, so ties the binds. So on page 23, it says Narcotics Anonymous is a program of action and not theory. So, for a long time for me, it was like I'm a member. I was walking around dressed up like garbage can. Didn't do no work, and that's because I was afraid, like the literature says, if I get to let people know me, what they really like me based on what I've done in the past. So, it kind of took me a long time to grasp the hold of the action, because things and all that was never a problem to obtain, but it was a problem to keep for me. Growing up as the youngest child of 4 kids, it was a lot of dysfunction going on, and I was always told, don't speak unless you're spoken to. So that held me in the grips of addiction, even though I didn't even know I was addicted as a little girl growing up. So I didn't discover my voice probably maybe 2 years into my recovery, because I was so fear of shame and guilt and doubt and self-loathing and dereliction, even clean, because I haven't begun to actually work the action part of Narcotics Anonymous. And I thought I could think, because I was cute, I had a good job, finally was able to keep it, that I could think my way into a new way of living. But every time I would always just bump my head and hurt myself and the others around me like a tornado in other people's lives. And eventually I got sick of myself, and then only then in desperation will I seek out help. So I entered this sponsee family. It's called Get Honest or Die Nationwide Tribe, and we have family members of Narcotics Anonymous all across the world. And entering an atmosphere like that gave me the ability to become willing to just do the work. Because from where I'm from, in a small town in Milwaukee, I had hurt so many people and done so many things that I felt that I couldn't get free to just be who God was having me become in a program, Narcotics Anonymous. So I held myself in a, self-made prison. But, eventually, as I got comfortable with women, because I like to engage myself with women that's moving forward the same mindset and goals and things that I want out of my life, like the inside job, like to clean out the garbage can and get all the gook out so I can become the best version myself. And when I was in treatment, I remember them telling me, get a household plan, and that's when you'll know if you're able to be in a relationship. And then I noticed that that's part of a literature. Some of us simply begin by trying to keep a house plan alive, and I got house plans, and it worked for me, and that helped me to get some self-confidence, because if I'm able to nurture a plant that can't talk back, then it gave me the freedom to be able to nurture myself, which moves me into connecting to myself. I had to begin to learn to tell myself the truth. And even sometimes the truth will be hard. And still today, I do things that's inconducive to my recovery, and I look at it and I say, I talk to myself and be like, Michael, well, that ain't right. Why you do that? But it's something about, the mindset for me, like somewhere along the line, I won't allow myself to be great. Because coming in the program of Narcotics Anonymous, it gives me tools, to be great in my own right. So I got with the Sponsee family, and the women were nurturing and loving, because I didn't get that growing up. I grew up in an abusive household, and that helped me to become a better version of myself by telling myself some nice things about myself and get out of the doom and gloom of my past, because sometimes my past has the ability to hold me hostage still today. And, I have to work on that daily, and like I said, be around women that helps edify my spirit and be okay to tell my truth when I done messed up again, and get that encouragement. And here it says, our personalities and our sense of who we were warped our addiction. And when we get clean, we are even more confused. Even with 9 years clean, sometimes I can still find myself confused, and that's the part of the ties that binds me together with my Sponsee family, because it's highly suggested that we follow directions. And sometimes that directions can be heavy for me to just pick up the phone and say exactly where I'm at and what I'm struggling in and how you can help me. Because I'm very teachable, because I don't want to continue to be stuck in the same place, like I spoke about, self-loathing, dereliction, distrust of others. So it takes me even a lot to get up here and share myself and become vulnerable. Because I was, like I have a sponsor, she tells me to call her every day, and it's just so loving to have someone with a soothing voice, because see, the way he talks to me matters to me today, and I need someone in my life that's going to soothe me and comfort me and help me to know that it's okay to continue to work on becoming, a better part of myself. Like, I journal every day. I talk to my sponsor every day. We on the line every first, second, third Tuesday and Sunday. So, we have a huge network, and those are some requirements to be in that family, because it's a lot of information, and it helps me. Like, I like information that continues to help me describe, help me move along the way. Also, moving forward, it says there may be different ways we describe ourselves, and the ones that seems most important can change depending on where we are in our lives. And I read about that because recently I have been telling my sponsor that I'm so, something's wrong with me, because I'm really, really struggling in this one area of my life, and she said, you have to stop saying that. Like, why do you keep saying something wrong with you? Although it is, but I'm going to have to continue to speak it into existence. I know the problem. I have to get into the solution, and that helps me, because sometimes I feel like I just can't get it right. Like, I don't use no matter what, but the other areas I'm suffering in, sugar. I'm a sugar addict. Like, I every morning I wake up and say I ain't going to eat it again, but and then I have one, and it's too many, and then I go off on the binge. And it's just something I won't stop until I get sick. So that's one of my strongest holds in addiction right now. It's the food and the sugar. And then it talks about connection to my higher power. As a little girl growing up, I had my auntie's connection to a higher power, which she chose to call God, and I do also now at this time. But I enjoyed being around my auntie, just her spirit, her finesse, the way she carried herself and talked to others. So I came in here with a sense of her God, but as I grew and my life began to change, I started losing people. I thought God had punished me. But working, the fourth step, I began to forgive myself, my mother, and going to God to identify him as what I wanted, him to be, or what I needed God to be in my life. And it was so refreshing. And right here it says, question our relationship with NA can take it to a deeper level. The answers we find help to resolve our new reservations, and the security to question our foundation is part of the secret to solidifying it for a lifetime. So I questioned God, which is mentioned over 315 times in our literature, which helped me to understand that God brought me to Narcotics Anonymous, and he'll bring me through Narcotics Anonymous, because it's not easy for me, a program, to like just get up and be honest and tell the truth and become free who you freely want to be. Just no matter what, who you around. You can just be yourself, don't have to wear that mask anymore. So I was grateful to begin to get that identification with the own God of my understanding, because I understand that, you know, today he is loving and caring, and he'll always do for me what I can't do for myself. It says we need to be brutally honest with ourselves about what we feel and what we believe. So I have a false belief system, and I know it's false because I realize it in my unmanageability inward and outwardly, but I had to tell myself the truth, because see, I was a daddy's girl. And then, of course, he did everything. Even as an adult in my addiction, I didn't get evicted. I was close to it, but, you know, they bailed me out. And now that I'm in a loving, healthy relationship, sometimes I tend to put all the hard, heavy work on my husband. Just because I know he can do it don't mean he can do it. And see, I'm just up here freeing myself, because see, these are some things that I'm really working on, because see, I don't even want to work. And I just had to tell the truth, because I've been trying to, you know, not tell the truth, but you get back here and God will probe you to say what you need to say, and I don't want to work. Right, and that's insane, right? Because I have a great life. I've always had a great life as a kid, but I chose to use drugs. Both working parents, even though they was dysfunctional. But now that I'm an adult, my father deceased 3 months after I got clean in November. 2 months, how many ever? I thought I had got it together, you know. And it came to my reality that I reached a certain plateau, and I know it don't equal recovery, but I got the stuff, the house, the car, the job, got the job, realized I didn't even want the job, didn't even like the job. And I struggled for 8 years on that job with attendance. And the only thing saved me was the grace of God and FMLA. because I do have, you know, underlying issues. This literature tells us that we might need to go get some outside help. And I went to get some outside help, and it's still a struggle, like paranoia. It's a struggle for me sometimes. I'm always wanting to sit with my face to the back, and, you know, just not have nobody walking around me, because, you know, I did that in my addiction, and I just had to work through it. And, like, anxiety. But, yeah, I'm glad that I was able to get that out there, because I do want to do better, and I know I'm capable, but it begins with the things that I tell myself, you know, and it's that false belief system inward and our unmanageability that comes from step one. I'm currently back on step one, because that's where I need to be to, you know, get to the bottom of this false belief system, because it's nobody's responsibility to take care of me but me and God, and mainly God, because he will make sure all my needs is met. Not my wants, though. Maybe sometimes. It says, through these periods of grave doubt and uncertainty, we find a new surrender, a deeper faith, and often a very sense of who we are. You know, so by doing the new work that I'm doing, like journaling and meditation, going through the 21 days of abundance, and it's helping me really get in contact with who I am, like, for real. Because, see, I'm a strong person, and anything that I manifest in my mind, it can come to reality. But, see, I have to do the work. And that's, you know, something that I learned through the keep coming back to no matter what, walk around with your head up and be your true virtuous self, you know. So I'm grateful for my self-doubt sometimes, because it helps me to realize that I'm not that person that I say I was just because I was told that for 20, 30 years of my life. That's not who I am anymore. Maybe back then it was portion of me, but today I'm so much better than what I was, and I'm grateful for Narcotics Anonymous for, helping grow me up. Like, little girls do grow up. Although I was a grown woman, sometimes my mind still wants to be catered to, nurtured to, taken care of. It says recovery works very well, but not always on the schedule we set it for. Instant gratification. I'm talking about I want the weight to go away quick, but I don't want to do the work. Right. and I know that's not how it works. When I totally surrender on a deeper level that food, sweets, sugar, candy, cookies, cake, especially in the middle of the night, is death. It's like death. It's like jail, institution of death for me, for this addict, because I know how it makes me feel, but yet and still I want to shove it down my mouth and continue to kill myself. And that's how I have to look at it. Because I ain't got it yet, but I'm learning the concept. The more I share about it, the more I talk about it. It's a drug for me. And it says connection to the world around us. The connection to the world around us is huge, like for me, because sometimes I want to connect, but that fear and that insecurity and that self-doubt creeps in. So I'm in the process of opening a recovery club. This is not a shout out. This is just connection to the world around me, right? I live in a small town, and I know that it was purpose, because I've been working on this project since 2018. Coming and going, stopping and moving, and it's the fear of getting out there networking. I know it's possible, but something in me say, oh, it's gonna fail, ain't nobody gonna help me get no grant. Just all those things I tell myself, but I have had the encouragement and the motivation and now the determination to get out there and do the footwork and solicit things so my program can grow, because it's a community that will be God-given for the community, a recovery facility for people like us to go hang out, play cards, have meetings, learn functions, do peer support. And I'm like on my close to last paperwork with my attorney to be able to solicit funds. So that's helping me. Thanks. And this book is helping me. It said we build our foundation in recovery. Like, I have a solid foundation in recovery today, and that's only to my willingness to do the work and put myself out there and be the loving, compassionate person that Narcotics Anonymous talk about, because this is a program of love, and the only way this addict was able to give love was to love myself first. I'm talking about that genuine, unconditional love, so I'm grateful for learning that, because I didn't grow up with that. But now today I actually can say that I can love without any expectations. I can give without any expectations. I want to go that extra mile. Call me, because I want to be that person that's dependable, that can count on. Like, I'm there for my kids, but recovery takes me back to the community, and I want to give that same hope for the people that's yet to come. And it says the bases are always important, but at some point they may not be enough to sustain us. And I'm just use that personal as me, because I love Narcotics Anonymous literature. It's perfect. But I have also learned in a sponsee family to get to that deeper level, that root cause, to learn to become my authentic self, which gives me the encouragement and the ability to stand in front of you to do something deeper, like read another book, go that extra mile, and to rebirth myself every single day so I can continue to grow to that next level of gratitude in my life. Because I took it for granted for so much time, but I have to get to the core of the issue of why I still do the things that I do today. So I read a multitude of different books, and it tells me that I have to be vulnerable. like in every area of my life, so my true authentic self can be birthed. And sometimes that's a risk. And I don't have to feel guilty for what I did or shame, because guilty is what it was and shame is how I make myself feel. And I don't have to do that anymore, because I can move forward and I can continue to forgive myself. And I got that out of a book. I didn't make that up. That's another one of those books that I read for self-help. And that's okay, for me to do that, because it says it right here. The basics are always important, because like I'm back on step one. I wouldn't even be able to share this honest and open if I hadn't went back to step one and took a deeper look at where the disease of addiction is affecting my life today. And it says the answers are in the steps. I am a firm, finally believer of the answers is in the steps. Everything starts with me and ends with me. And I'm grateful to have given myself the opportunity to work the steps and continue to work the steps. And again, and many times I need to work the steps, because as long as I'm clean and in recovery, there's always an opportunity for growth. So that's, like my connection to the world. And when I get my building, y'all all have an invitation. So connection to others. That kind of goes with the connection to the world around me. Like having a sponsee family, sponsee sisters, and that's what it feels like. And it says sometimes, some days it seems really easy to identify with others, to feel welcome and welcoming at a meeting. At other times, all we hear are the things that set us apart from the group. Whew! I struggle with being so set apart, because, my life wasn't the way a lot of people have shared about. This ain't for gloating or bragging rights. I didn't lose my kids. I had my mama, thank God. I had an older sister, thank God, because had it not been for the community, I would have. And I go to the meetings. I used to go to the meetings. I used to feel like I didn't belong here, and that has stopped. That had kept me in my self-made prison for so long, until I had to find some identification that all addicts recover at different rates of recovery and different rates of sickness. I didn't quote that right. I'm not a good book quoter, because my mind ain't as like it used to be, but it's better. So I'm grateful for finding the identification in others that helps me be able to, share, and like young man said, nod your head when you can identify, because that's why we are all thrust in here together, for identification purposes. So we discover the magic, the gift, when we see the light come on in someone else's eyes. I was a mentor, and I seen the light come on in this young lady's eyes. That's when I knew that was my purpose, to help mentor, because she got it. She learned how to read. She learned how to be polite to her parents and stop being disrespectful. And it wasn't only me, it was the God that was in me. And I was able to help blow breath back in that young lady, the God, through me. And that's when I found my purpose of being in Narcotics Anonymous, to continue to be here no matter what it is, no matter how I'm feeling, because it's always somebody that's going to come behind me, and they're going to be looking for somebody to see that light in them. So my name is Marky P, and that's all I got.